Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Koen Hoogstoel. I'm working for Yokogawa since 18 years. Yokogawa is a company active in process automation, and I've done all kind of sales, product management, and indeed I tumbled in the pricing part as well. CPQ is a part of it, and that's why and how we connected with Vendavo.
Thank you.
So, hello. Yeah, also working. So my name is Kati Illka, and I work for the Huhtamaki company. So it's a Finnish packaging company. I have my experience for 16 years in the packaging. Not so much with Huhtamaki, but with packaging and in pricing in different roles. So.
Thank you.
My name is Corey Schroeder, and my background is in the electronics manufacturing space. Worked with Vendavo and on pricing for about 10 years. Recently joined Vendavo, and so I'm coming here today as customer perspective. So hopefully I can touch on some of the questions that you're about to ask.
Fantastic. So we have people from 3 different industries, from different geographies. I think we're going to have some very interesting discussions here. So my name is Carl. I'm the product manager for Vendavo Price Point, and pricing and getting the value through pricing. I think it's fantastic. And we were planning to talk about a little bit on how you are working today, how you're operating today around this area, what type of challenges you see, how you have overcome them, but also a little bit on how you see the future looking like. Where are we heading within this space? And I wanted to just start with a question around how you're organized. Since we all are working, or you are working in global B2B organizations where you have a lot of different people you need to interact with, how you're organized is, of course, an important starting point to understand how the challenges sit. And who would like to get started here and highlight how you are organized and how you operate?
You're looking at me, so I will start. Yokogawa is of course, global company. We are split into, I would say, 6 big regions. And that is also how we implement pricing. So every region has their own list price. Of course, there is a global US dollar list price, which we also have. And then, of course, the more you drill down, the more list prices you have. And then even looking at Europe, you have 17 independent countries. And the difficulty is, of course, how to connect them all. In the beginning, we called it domestic list price. Italy has its list price, France has its list price, Belgium, UK. And set apart from the currency, what we did, the first thing, in fact, we did with analyzing the pricing is we said, especially then for Europe, let's kick them all out and let's use one European list price. And I can tell you that was quite an interesting... if you look at the south of Europe, you see a lot of people trembling at the north. Nobody said anything, but still you could feel that there was like, you're not going to give us the Italian prices, do you? So that's why, sorry for the Italians here, by the way. But that's indeed the trigger. And that's also what we see in Europe on a small scale. It also happens on a global scale as well. So it's, quite interesting.
So we have a bit similar, we are a global company, so working in 38 countries. So big one, we are currently implementing Vendavo. So we are doing VPP and designing the CPQ model. What we've done is that we have taken the approach to have country-based pricing. So we see that the prices are very different per country. So it can vary actually between Finland and Sweden, which is still, quite close. And then, of course, if you go to China and Finland, it's even more. So this is how we will start working on it. So it's very specific, of course, trying to bring the values of a big company, but still doing the regional pricing and not losing the benefit of that, because we also have regional, services, values that we provide.
So, Corey, coming from an American perspective, do you recognize yourself in the challenges and the setups the other panelists have?
Definitely. So we are, where I came from was a global organization as well, been around for about 80 years. And pricing has definitely evolved since the beginning of time. the way that we were structured was we had very similar. We had 4 regional list prices, where I would say the majority of our business was not based off of that. It was independent special pricing. And what we did about 4 years ago was implement Vendavo's price optimization manager, which is now Deal Price Optimizer. And what that helped us to do was really take separate the list price from the negotiated price and take the human element out of the daily decisions and use that resource to outline the strategy to set up the system. So then as the thousands of price requests comes in, every week, we had a system that drove our pricing decisions, away from trying to make those pricing decisions on a daily basis.
So I can imagine one of the big values delivered from the pricing team throughout the complete organization there.
Correct. That is probably, besides just setting up and driving all the pricing actions, the single most impactful thing that we've done in probably the past 10 years.
So within your organizations, would you see the big values the pricing team and you guys are delivering throughout the organizations?
Well, I started by saying we implement a list price, and that was already new. And on the other side, what is of course the big challenge and the big change management now ongoing is that we want to go away from the cost plus selling. And there is of course we can talk for hours on this. I was also in sales. I had my targets. They were all based upon profit. You see the big numbers out there. You said the cost is 100. You have to make 20% margin. So what do? You quote for everybody 120 because this is your target. And to move away from that, it's a benefit that you were there before, but to move away from this idea, that is extremely complicated because you have to start first with a new list price. You throw a new list price to the people and say, why? Because it worked for 20 years, so why do I have to change? And then you throw a second thing at them and you say, but yeah, you will step away from what you have been doing, from cost plus selling. You will use that list price and we will determine the amount of discount you can give to your customers. So we are linking those authorizations not to the cost plus, but to the discount mechanisms. And that is a big challenge on our side.
I can imagine. Big shift.
Yeah, we are, we are just doing the implementation. So we have different plants, which we call BUs, and everybody has a bit of different way of doing the pricing. So for us now, the central pricing is to coordinate this and bring some transparency between and help also the sales to do the value-based pricing. So it's very cost-plus based. And of course, it depends a lot of what is the cost are, Are they the ideal? Who knows, So it could go very much wrong. So we are now, as a pricing and with the tool, very much focused on the value-based pricing. But it's, I would say it's a journey. So you go further and already learned, by talking with Koen here, new things that we could think of. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you're working with more value-based pricing, going towards that journey, are you measuring any other KPIs apart from margin and those KPIs, price effectiveness or something like that?
Well, I think, working with the sales many years, I hear customers speed, one of the things. And if you have global key account with several different plants, gathering the information, all these things. So speed is clearly a one. We also don't follow up currently a lot of the win-loss ratio, which I think it's also something because then you know what goes wrong, what doesn't go well, and how you can improve. So these are, I think, clearly some of the measurements that we will follow in the future. And of course the financial ones also, but I think those are, more kind of clear for people because you follow them anyway, but these are also something that are kind of influencing.
An interesting one, and we had a lot of debates about this, is the hit rate. I think everybody knows what it is. If you send out one quote and you get one order, the hit rate is 100%. Of course, if you make a revision, is that part of the hit rate? Debate a lot. And then we had an interesting discussion. Yeah, you can put this as a KPI and say, yeah, what do we want? Do we want to increase or decrease the hit rate? Because we said on our side, it took too much time to make a quote. So we have to simplify the way we make quotes. So in fact, we make more quotes, but then the hit rate will go down. While the KPI was, we have to increase the hit rate. So it was like, but we should not do this. And on the other side, of course, you want to make your quoting so efficient that you don't send quotes to customers who do not buy from you. So that double analysis is something where we still like in the middle. And honestly, we were not measuring. It was like, target hit rate is 30%. But what do you do when you receive a direct order and you did not make a quote? Oh, then the hit rate is like, I don't know. So, and those kind of measurements are now starting up because of the use of CPQ and all the rest. It goes all automatic. In the past, it was like Excel exports out of SAP and a lot of manual work. And that is what we want to get out of it. Yeah,
but I also think it's not that, black and white. Sometimes, speed can also be a thing of strategy. You actually don't want to be fast. You want to negotiate and things. So you can't, as you said, the hit rate. It's not like you can say hit rate 1. Yeah, you need to still think your business. You have a great system and you do something automatically, but you can't think that's it. Now you still need to separate your business and think how we're still humans and you need to think a bit how you behave with different cases.
Yeah, I think that brings up a good point. So one of the things that we keep a close eye on is asking questions that drive bad behavior and that give, opposite results of what you're looking for. So one of the things that we implemented was only focusing on profitability of sales and not percentages and not revenue, because those used to be our core metrics and they kind of battle each other out. And so at the end of the day, the core metric we looked at was profitability of an account or of a salesperson.
Okay. And the next perspective of this is, of course, the underlying data, to be able to trust the data, to be able to utilize it. How has the challenging aspects been looking like in this space for you?
Yeah. Of course, when you talk about data, you talk about security, but that's an whole other topic. We're using SAP as the core master database. We have a lot of data. And then, of course, to get it out of it, it's like, okay, but sorry, you cannot send this data to CPQ because then it will be open. Everybody can connect to it. And so they were quite very afraid of it. A lot of discussions on the IT side. But of course, you need to get those data. And then, of course, you have a new set of data coming up from, and I mainly talk about CPQ for the moment. In the past, we were trying to monitor all the quotes. Because, in fact, we always say you can do forecasting, but if you do not know how many quotes you make, you're a bit lost. And this is one part of the data. You can also use the quote information to send to product management. If you launch a new product, how fast is that product being sent to the market, and those kind of things. And that is opening new IDs also to our BUs or regions as well. So there is a lot coming out of. And the limit is, in fact, I always say the creativity. You have to speak to those people. You have to ask them, hey, what do you want to do? And for 1 month, they don't say anything. And then suddenly they pop up, hey, can we also do this? Yeah, of course, it's at your feet. I will do it. And then it's there. So that really helps.
Yeah, for us, we have, I would say, probably as many ERP systems as we have the plants. So that's kind of maybe telling the story about the data. And once we are now implementing, we think we are quite okay, but once you start touching the data, you might find something. So it's still there to come. But we've already, in this stage of the project realized that we need to do some changes. For example, the product structures were not detailed enough, things like this. So it's very much, the data quality is, you need to make sure you make the right decisions, because if you don't have the right data, you will not make the right decisions, but I would say, again, it's not going to end next month. It's going to be a continuous thing, especially with all these, different ERP systems we have, which, we load the data. Yeah.
Do you recognize yourself, Corey?
I was just thinking having multiple ERP systems sounds like a nightmare. So I'm thankful that was not our challenge. But I think one of the issues that we would run into is what data is actually helpful, and then what of that data, what's actually clean. And so we try to do as much simplifying as possible. But then that's always challenging because, like you had mentioned, then the next day somebody asks for one more piece of data. So it's really a balance of what do you think can drive those decisions, and then how can you clean that up. So real quick, one of the exercises that we went through recently was making sure that the decisions that we were making were based off of obviously the right data, and then how do you go in and clean that? And so we just paraded it out. So what customer information was correct, what product information was correct, because the long tail you're never going to get right, and if you wait until that's correct, then you'll never actually proceed. So it's just prioritization.
Yeah, and the next aspect of pricing, it's always data, but then people. So how do you collaborate on a regular basis with the local stakeholders, etc.? Do you have some stable formation set up, or how is it working in practice?
Yeah, on the Yokogawa side, we started with CPQ, and in the beginning, we already started with two big divisions. We said we have the business side and we have the IT side. And this went through the whole rollout structure. So we always decoupled business and IT. Of course, we are speaking to each other, but we also hand over. So the needs come from the business, and the business side passes the needs to IT. And they implement, they speak to developers here and then consulting. So it's more like a role where we have, okay, we can of course cross the line, but not too far away. So that IT, for example, cannot decide, we will not implement this, this is what we are going. For example, let's roll out to region number 1, while the business said, no, we have to first roll out to region number 2. And that was really from the beginning, I think, a positive point, is that it was business driven. And that helps, because if you have to roll out a new region or a new software package or whatever it is, then you immediately know, okay, those guys will be helping me out to roll it out. It's not always like this, but it helps a lot. It's not driven from the top or somebody from IT saying, hey guys, we have a new tool, here it is, please use it. Yeah, that will never work. That is how we do it.
Yeah, we, because we have so many individual ways of doing it, you need to, now when we do the implementation, we do it together with the people, of course. We need to, but we also need to find the balance, So we have a change management process when we go further that, we can't do everything. We need to find a standard, and then we need to decide in the segment level, what do we actually want? And of course, you need to have clear reasons, If somebody wants something and we don't see it's a good thing, you need to discuss. So in the end, it's people, we work together, and they need to use the tool. So if we talk about the implementation, it's their tool. So it's together that we do these things. Yeah.
And within Molex?
Vision is probably the most important thing, making sure that everyone is aligned on the vision. So that doesn't mean it has to be alignment on the scope or how you actually execute, but what's the overall objective? Because at the end of the day, if you're all working towards that same vision, then you're all kind of, working together and making sure that even if you don't agree with what someone else is doing, as long as you can point to it gets to this, overall objective, it made it a lot easier to execute.
And maybe to add to this also, what we see on our side is the business process alignment. Yeah, you have of course the cultural setting. That's something else. But if you say, well, one region is going that way, the other one is going that way, we say maybe we can go that way so that they both come together. And this is a big challenge for on our side, I have to say. So it helps to have been there, to work with them, but you will never be always 100% good to go for everybody, and that needs some maybe tweaking as well.
Yeah, I think the communication, it's always difficult because you can never have enough, to be honest. Yeah. So, but you need to have enough that you get the people feeling that they have a chance to influence and that you listen and you give feedback. But of course that requires time, which is always limited. But I think this is one of the key things to be success, that you need to communicate to make sure that it is.
Yeah, and then absolutely. And then of course you have the bottom-up approach and the top-down approach, if we can talk like this. You have, I would say, more American style is like you go in from the top, you force all the users and they say yes. I don't know.
But that's when you have the cultural differences.
But
it might not work for everything.
Then you have the cultural differences indeed, and that is also tricky. So we tend to work from both sides.
So I was just about to ask that. You have mentioned Italians and Italian price lists, the American style, top down. What are the biggest, let's say, regional differences that you see within your organizations?
Well, I once was in a training and about cultural differences, and they put a Vietnamese person in a room together with an American guy. And it was about negotiation. I can tell you it was a catastrophe. Because the American was so direct, and honestly I appreciate it, but in Eastern Europe they tend to close themselves in. So for each and every region you have to find the good balance to talk to them. And as you said, even in Europe, you have the south and north. It's completely different.
It's for myself, for example, being a Finnish, when I started my business life, it was somebody asked me, "How are you?" And I actually told them, and I was having, that's kind of a thing, you end up, having the, Finnish way, very direct. Let's go to the topic. Let's not chit chat, and then you need to find the balance that. With some cultures, you need to discuss first, and then actually go into the topic. So it's again, we're humans, so we need to do it a bit individual way.
So I guess I'll be careful on what I say. The one thing that I've learned, in my 15 years at a global organization is you have to realize that there are differences, right? And so if you go in and if you assume that your way is the same way with all regions or genders or anything, then you're going to be wrong. And so I think it's the sensitivity walking into a conversation of, and I'll get it wrong, but at least recognizing that there are differences. And so if I ask you how you're doing and you respond and you tell me actually how you're doing, that it's not, negative or positive, it's just the way that people are. And so I think openness and understanding is probably the most important, because again, you will get it wrong, but as long as you understand that, then you're in a good spot.
I wanted to go back to one of the first things you said, Koen. You said, why should I change, as one of the topics that came up early on. So what was the answer for you?
Yeah, there are of course the corporate directions, and I think everybody has the same thing. We even heard it for sustainability. We all have to improve. We have to improve profit, sustainability. Everything has to improve. Of course, when you then say why do I have to change? It's in fact a difficult question, especially when you have somebody in front of you who said, "Yeah, but I'm working like this for 25 years. Why should I change?" And then 2 months later, he was sitting at home because of COVID and he had to change. Because he was used to go to the office and that happened. And why should I change? Because this happens. You have to be prepared for everything. And this is it was in fact for our company, it was an opportunity. We were already thinking, okay, how can we do e-commerce? It's interesting, but are we ready to do this? Are we ready to let people work from home? It is exactly the same. But suddenly something happens and you have to. And yeah, that's...
Yeah, I also think it's a difficult question. What I kind of, I would push it back a bit and ask, why not, you know, and also trying to listen to the person, you know, if you find ways that they can actually benefit, you know, or you get into the reason why they don't, because people might fear of their jobs, they, you know, what is actually the reason why they are not wanting to change, then you might find the points that you push through in that, you know, that and they actually see, okay, maybe there is some light behind this if you make them comfortable. But again, it requires time and you can't do this individually, so you need to find some combined ways. But yeah, one way is to do it by you know, must, but usually it works better if you get the people to you know, work with you on it. And if you do to take them to work with you, it's also often works better because then they feel they have a way to influence it.
Can I just pick on this? Because I think indeed you're correct. When somebody is working for 17, 18, 20 years in the same role, they don't see that they can change. And sometimes it uses a bit of a trigger to say, but why are you doing this every day? Yeah, because, and then it stops. And then you can say maybe, hey, but we can also do it like this. Instead of working for 30 minutes on a report, you do 3 clicks and you have it on your desk. And I say, oh, that's interesting. So that can also help, of course, yeah.
Mm. And coming back to more towards the price management side of things, you did start to talk a little bit about going towards the value-based pricing structures from the cost-based perspectives, etc. What was the triggering point there? What enabled you to start that journey?
You're always looking at me first. The trigger was that, first of all, I was in, I remember sales meetings, you gather in a room full of sales managers, and I've asked the question, we have a product, can you tell me what is the average price you sell that product for? Of course, out of the room, you could hear everything except the price. It was like, yeah, it depends on this, it depends on what. I said, okay, let's take an example. You have this and this and this. And nobody could answer. They were always reflecting to, yeah, but I have to make this, whatever, 40% margin, 50%, I don't know. And then you ask, yeah, but how are you then going to approach your customer or even a new customer? And that was even worse. If it was an existing one, you can always go back in history and you say, let's follow the same thing. But for a new we have no idea. And when we did then trends and we discovered the prices, they went all over the place. So we said, okay, we have to start somewhere. We have to see on how we can work this out. That was in fact the main trigger on our side.
Yeah, I think, you know, I wasn't in this company when the decision was moved into that, but I would say for value-based pricing, it's, and when I listen to people, it's about the transparency also. You know, when you have many BUs and it's like you said, you based on the cost, so you get different prices and things like that. It's very hard to actually follow what is there. You know, and if you try to compare the prices, it's like, what are these actually including? You know, so we are still in the journey. Clearly, you know, it's a start, and we work on it, and we will see how the organization reflects. But you already hear that people, you know, they kind of get there, but you know, it's a journey. But I think, yeah. It's a way forward, clearly.
I think for us, one, we had to recognize that we had an issue, like we were losing profitability because we were only basically on cost plus, and then prove that we could actually change that. And so we ran some pilots and determined, one, we had a lot of variation in our pricing, and it wasn't driven by typical market factors. So it wasn't because of the size of the customer or the region. Now that actually, those were occurring, but even within the same sort of customer base, same type of products, is extreme variation, like almost 1 to 2x for one customer versus the next, with no, nobody could explain why. But what you did see was this like line where nothing fell below, and that was the cost plus mark. And so we ran some experiments with that and said, okay, well, what if we push just everybody to the average, right? Very simple, probably most basic, modification of pricing. And then from there, we kept pushing the envelope, and we picked a product that, was not that high a risk, but had a lot of variation, and it showed a couple things. One is you can be a lot more profitable if you actually used a little bit more logic behind the pricing, but also for the sales side, which was the side I had to implement it, you could sell less. Right? So if you told somebody, hey, if you just did a little bit better in terms of like focusing on the pricing, you could spend less time actually, selling to more customers. That's how we kind of get the buy-in from the sales side to focus a little bit more on value than just hitting a margin target.
Cool. And for the long-term success, how is the collaboration looking like with the markets? How do you collect, let's say, ongoing feedback from the sales teams and local markets to the pricing?
Okay. Should I start?
I'll look at you, Kati, this time.
Yeah. No, we are together with the implementation of the digitalization, we are building the pricing process. So with all the pricing strategies and cycles that we review, the price levels, and this is done in cooperation with the head of categories who are responsible of certain categories, and also taking the regional sales managers to these meetings. So then we actually have some clear data, looked at from the system, because now, as said, we have so many systems that trying to gather and compare all these, it's very, very challenging. And now I think actually the organization is waiting to see this. Because then, they're already asking, can we see it, so that we could see, yeah. So it's a good starting phase.
Some of the things that we've implemented is doing different, taking different actions in different either customers, different regions to kind of compare, so we could show the data, right? Show, how are we progressing, but also to learn, because quite honestly, and I hope you're not recording this, but sometimes we're wrong, right? Sometimes we don't get it right. And so not only is it important to drive different behavior from a sales standpoint, but also to check and balance what we're doing to make sure that the insights that we're providing are profitable.
Fantastic input and feedback, and happy that you're able to share this with everyone here. Anything specific that you want to highlight that you want to share with the audience here on top of what we have been discussing so far?
Yeah, I think when we started 3 years ago with CPQ, it was indeed the beginning of a journey. And the IT side is one thing, but as I was also told, that change management is really 80% of the rest. Everybody can program something in a system, but making it work for your people is the most difficult thing what we still have.
Yeah, I think this is digitalization is a great thing, but we are humans. We still need to work and talk about things. So that is the thing. I always say the business would be easy if we would have no people, but yeah, we do, and that's still the case. So I think that's the message.
Kind of along those same lines, simplification, right? Try not to make it so complex where nobody understands it. It can be complex for you, but then how do you share information to gain buy-in?
And scale it.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you for coming here today. Robert? Thank you from Robert also.